Welcome back. I don't know if any of you are like me, but recently I've been pushing to sleep less because I've been thinking, how can I possibly have more hours in the day? And the answer that I came up with was, well, if I'm just laying there doing nothing for 8 hours, why wouldn't I cut that in half to 4 hours and give myself 4 more hours of being productive during the day and 4 less hours of being asleep and just laying there doing nothing at night? As I found out, both through experimentation and reading a little bit more and getting more educated, that's not the proper thing to do. Sleep is really important, so today I wanted to talk a little bit about that. Once I started Voice First, the company I run, I realized that having 18 credit hours in college, running a business, trying to volunteer, trying to maintain a social life, and enjoying college and enjoying life, making time for meditation, all of the things that we do as 18 to 24-year-olds, we're in this constant mode of competition, of wanting to get more done in less amount of time and to work harder so that way we can have a bigger impact on this planet. And a lot of the people that I talk to say, dang, you ever have the thought, how do I get more hours? How do I get more done in the day? Don't you wish that the day had more hours? I do. I would love it if we did, but we don't need that. We live in a world where we can have enough food, where we have enough resources, where we have everything that we really need at our fingertips. Now that this is a thing, I can pretty much ask for anything that I want, and then it's just fulfilled. Shipped to my door, next day, 2 days. It's crazy the times that we live in. I was listening this morning to an NPR podcast called Hidden Brain. I'll have the episode link in the description below. It had a lot of good insight on why sleep deprivation is a very serious health concern and why it's important for humans to get at least 6 hours of sleep a night. Let me start off by talking about, from my own perspective, what it was like for me to spend the past 2 months getting about 4 hours of sleep every single night, including on weekends. I'd wake up at 5 a.m. and I would feel pretty groggy, so I would lay down and I would just read through my notebook of all the pages that I had. And it would take me about 2 hours to get to the point where I could go downstairs and exercise. After that, throughout the day, I started dozing off in class. My teachers would come up to me and they would ask, Pat, are you doing okay? And I would tell them, yeah, I'm loving life. I'm just working hard on the projects that are bringing me passion. So my teachers would try to say, take care of yourself, but at the same time, I had a smile on my face and I seemed happy. So was there really anything wrong? I'd continue to fall asleep and I'd try to make time for naps. And I realized that while I could do everything physically, my physical health wasn't really impacted, but my mental health took a major turn down. I became more irritable. I was less willing to think outside the box and to consider other people's opinions. I got a lot more stressed out and was always thinking that there were these impending deadlines weighing on my shoulders, making it so that I could never really have a moment of freedom, a moment of creativity, and a moment of real relaxation. So even though I had more hours of the day while I was awake, I was less conscious during all of those hours. While I was in class, I dozed off and didn't think about anything. While I was working on Voice First, I would think about how I was slacking off my classes because I fell asleep there. So my productivity everywhere kind of diminished as a result of me spending less time sleeping. So back to the Hidden Brain episode. They had a guy on who actually set the world record for going 11 days straight without any sort of sleep. Since he set that record, Guinness has actually removed sleep as a world record, citing health concerns. Health concerns from the world record holder. Got to think about that. They're cool. Guinness is cool with Felix Baumgartner riding up in a hot air balloon and then stepping out and falling faster than the speed of sound into Earth's atmosphere and then deploying a parachute to set a world record. But to stay up for more than 11 days to try to beat the world record for sleep is too much of a health concern. Sleep deprivation is linked with cancer in both males and females. It's related with irritability. It's related to other mental health concerns. It's very important. Sleep is a source of energy. I was always considering sleep as something that was taking away, it was distracting me from my real goals in life. But to realize the benefit of sleep, to realize that I can use sleep, that sleep gives me energy, that before bed, a tool that I used to do that I haven't done recently is write down whatever it is I'm thinking right before bed, because the last things you write down before bed are the first things that your mind's going to think about when you start falling asleep, which means that it's more likely for your mind to be active, working over those problems while you sleep. It's actually been a couple cited examples, more anecdotal, but still important to bring up. You have a problem, you're trying to figure out a new chord in whatever instrument you play, or you're trying to figure out a new physics problem in your homework, and you're pounding your head against it for hours on end, and you can't figure out a solution. Take a nap or fall asleep for the night, wake up in the morning, and you'll realize somehow the solution just came to you. Whatever problem you were hitting is gone. This is where I take my practice into consideration. You can get a lot of experience in one single sit down. You can sit down and you can say, okay, I'm going to learn how to do X. I'm going to learn how to, in my example, I'm going to learn how to code voice apps. I see a lot of people that come up to me and they're like, how do I learn how to program? Well, you could sit down and you could go onto Free Code Camp or Udemy or any other code learning platform, and you could bust out 8 hours of code, and then you could try to apply for a job. But you haven't had any chance for those learnings to sink in. And this is where it brings into how sleep is helpful it's like a save button. Everything that you did throughout the day, while you're sleeping, your brain experiences both REM and non-REM sleep. The REM sleep is where your mind is creative and you're having those dreams and you're very creative and your mind is very active. The non-REM sleep is like a save button on everything that you've been dreaming as well as all of your experiences throughout the day. So every single 90 minutes, every single cycle, your brain has periods of REM sleep and periods of non-REM sleep, and both are very important. The REM sleep is important for that creativity, the fostering of the active state. So when I'm talking about writing things down before bed, so that way my mind can work on it while I'm sleeping, that's the REM sleep that I'm trying to prime before I fall asleep. The non-REM sleep, after my brain has gone and had all these awesome dreams, the non-REM sleep is a chance for my brain to save all that, to have a period of downtime, of calm, so that way everything that I just experienced can get saved for a later day so that I can recall that memory later on. Both REM and non-REM sleep are very important, so one isn't necessarily better than the other. They just fulfill different points in your mental health. What's another thing that I heard this morning on the podcast? Yeah, so the big myth that I was debunking was I thought that sleep was a chance for my body to relax and be lazy and not do anything, when in reality sleep is a very active time for your body, just a different kind of activity than when I'm up and physically moving about. So moving on, the future of my sleep. Here's the kind of things that I'm going to be doing with my sleep to make sure that I'm using it to the best of my ability. One, I'm going to make sure that I get a minimum of 7-8 hours a night. So when I set my alarm, I won't always set the same time. Instead, I'll map out how far away is 7 hours, how far away is 8 hours, and I'll set my alarm to that. Luckily, my first college class doesn't start until 9:30 on Mondays and Wednesdays, and it doesn't start until 11:30 Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, which means that besides Monday and Wednesday, I have a lot of playroom to play with my sleep schedule to put it at a time that'll really work for me. On top of that, before I go to bed, I'm going to write down an idea that I'm working on. Tonight, I think I'm going to write down, with Voice First, I'm working on trying to infiltrate the hotel industry. So I'm going to write down what is the biggest value Voice First can provide to hospitality companies or to hotel companies. And I'll just write that down and I'll read it right before bed. That way, as soon as I fall asleep, after I do some breathing exercises to just kind of calm myself, I'll be able to let my mind work on that. So that even though I'm asleep and even though I'm laying there in inactivity, my brain is going to actively work on the problem. So that way when I wake up in the morning, I won't even realize it, but I'll have one, multiple, 100 solutions to the problem that I can go and attack. So rather than thinking that I always need to be conscious, always need to be working on the next thing, always need to be writing them down, I can trust that my brain is actually a really powerful force, and as long as I take care of it by giving it the food that it needs, by giving it enough sleep, by making sure that I'm focusing on my breathing at all times, and then trying to put myself in a meditative mindset, I can give myself an elevated amount of energy so that way while I'm awake, I can perform at a much higher level. And while I'm asleep, my body still has the energy and the capability of giving me superpowers. I'm seeing sleep as now a way. It's the spider biting me. It's me falling in a vat of acid. It's giving me superpowers that a lot of other people don't have. Because we live in this super competitive society right now. We live in a time where people actually feel prideful. I felt prideful for telling people that I only got 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night. I felt pride at telling people that I was hurting myself with sleep. Still, I was hurting my mental health. And people feel that. Why? We don't need to work 40 hours a week. We don't need to get 4 hours of sleep a night. Instead, we should think, how can I live a healthy and sustainable lifestyle? And one answer to that is don't screw with your brain and give yourself what science shows is an appropriate amount of sleep. 6 to 8 hours is plenty. It's exactly what I'm going to be focusing on, at least for the next 6 months. I'm going to make sure that I get 6.5 to 8 hours of sleep. That way I can make sure that while I'm awake, I'm in an active and energetic state. And while I'm asleep, I give my body enough time to experience both the REM and non-REM sleep, so that when I wake up, I can be more positive. It's just this constant wave. It's a self-reinforcing cycle. If I am more productive and I take care of my body when I'm awake, then while I'm asleep, I can have a better sleep cycle that's more productive and more active. And if I have a more active and more productive sleep cycle, and a healthy sleep cycle, that's going to allow me to have more energy and be more productive during my day. So really it does feed into itself, which is, as I'm saying this, making me see in hindsight how bad of an idea it was for me to only get 4 hours of sleep a night. But seeing how much I didn't like that and seeing how much it hurt me, I now have a much stronger reason, a much bigger backing, a much stronger force pushing me in the direction of getting better sleep than I would have ever had before. So in closing, get more sleep, 6 to 8 hours, understand that REM and non-REM, both good in their own ways. Being awake and being asleep, both states of activity, just different kinds of activity. Take care of yourself, think of your mental health. I'll catch you tomorrow.